Hello, my name is App from Raven Leather Jewelry, and today I'm going to show you how I made this leather and gemstone barrette. I start with a piece of 8-ounce veg tan leather. The first step is to case the leather by spraying the front and back with water. This helps the leather take impressions and carving more clearly. Once the leather is cased, I take an English point strap end punch and hammer it in to make the first petal of my design. Next, I take a straight edge and line it up with the center of the first petal. Then I take the punch and line it up so it hits both the end of the punch out from the first petal and the straight edge, and use that position as the second petal. Once that is punched in, I connect the two remaining petals with a third punch, and that gives me a 3-petal flower design. Once the design is marked out, I take my razor knife and cut the design out from the rest of the leather. Next, I take my awl and start drawing in the details of the petal design. I start at the center of the piece and draw a line straight to the tip of each petal. Then I draw more lines coming down the petals from the central point as basically veins of the petal. Once the design is drawn in, I go back in with my swivel knife and carve it in. I find with a design like this, you don't need to be incredibly accurate with carving over exactly where you drew, since the awl marks will fade in time anyway. They function more as a guide so you know where you should carve next and help you keep track of where you've been. That's why I think of this as another beginner-friendly project, because you can't really mess it up. After the main design is done, I go back over the piece and make tiny scratches with my swivel knife. These give the piece a more organic feel and break up the smooth, empty spaces. Once the design is carved in, I go back in with my edge beveler to smooth over the top and bottom edges of the barrette. This takes a little more time than usual because of the round shape, but it still wasn't that difficult. Next, I'm going to dye the barrette with this EcoFlow purple water stain. I apply the dye to a sponge, then rub it over the leather. You really need to work this dye in, so don't be afraid to scrub a little hard with it, and it may need multiple applications. I wound up using 3 or 4 coats of dye before I got it to where I wanted it. Once the dye has time to dry, it's time to finish the leather. I start by sealing it with the Aussie wax, which I spread on my hand and then rub onto the leather. The reason I do this instead of applying it directly to the leather is a little wax goes a long way, and you can apply too much if you go straight from the can. This method gives more even distribution. Once the wax is dry, I apply some toconol to the edges and mat it down with my slicker. Then I do the same thing on the flesh side of the leather to give it a smooth, comfortable feel. Next, I'm going to use this Phoebing's leather cement to attach a small amethyst cabochon to the center of the design. I put a dab of glue on the leather and then spread a little over the underside of the amethyst. This helps the two pieces bond together when the glue starts drying. I then press the cabochon into place and then hold it there for a little while so that the connection can set. Finally, I flip the piece over and glue on the barrette clip using the same process as the gemstone. Spread some glue on the leather, spread some on the clips, and then hold them together. And just like that, we have an amethyst purple leather barrette, perfect for fantasy or witchy girls, or for just looking pretty on the weekend. That's all for today, and I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.